Hello, everybody. This is Drayke, and we have Dasha on with us today. She is a dietitian that owns a coaching performance business that is called Core Performance. We're going to be speaking about gut health and a few other things that come along the way. And without further ado, Dasha, why don't you tell us a little bit about your path? You got into gut health, all the good stuff.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Dasha. You can find me on Instagram at Dasha Fitness. My background is in nutrition data science. So I went to Tufts University, got my master's in nutrition data. It was called nutritional epidemiology at the time. And that's the study of how diet affects disease. And that's really what I was focused and interested in. My favorite courses were always like biochemistry, micronutrients, understanding how we metabolize all the food that we put into our bodies. I did a lot of research. I worked at MGH doing facial reconstruction. I did stool sample studies in Puerto Ricans, learning about how they ate yogurts and how it affected their guts. I did literally like malaria research, mice research. I did it all because I thought I was going to be a doctor. So I wanted to build up my resume and get all the experience. Then I found out what doctors actually do and how the medical system works. And it's amazing. And I think a lot of people, they kind of bash it. But at the same time, once you understand what it's meant for, which is surgeries, like very severe diseases, like ER visits. Once you understand that that's how we should be using the medical system, then you start learning, oh, I didn't want to be a doctor. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to help people with their diet, their exercise. And so I really zoned in, and all my research, I did a lot of consulting. I wrote like on the back end, a lot of New York Times bestselling books. I wrote all the research in the back, all the protocols around them. Did a lot of consulting work on prehistoric, watching like Neanderthals, how we actually evolved, our physiology evolved, our bone structure, our organs, how they evolved over time, and how it changed and was shaped by the discovery of fire, by the agricultural periods. And so I did a lot of research on humans and how we eat, where that food is stored, how can we change where that food is stored. So a lot of that is my passion, my research, my background, and what got me into gut health. I think that's really ultimately what got me really into gut health, is understanding that it is at the forefront of every chronic disease. I was going through, at the time of my master's, my own gut issues. I was trying to get diagnosed with celiac disease, and so it was all happening all at once, I would say. And once I figured out and unlocked that gut health was the root of everything, that's what I became really passionate about.
Fascinating. I've been told I'm a bit of a Neanderthal sometimes too, so curious what that says about me.
Yes.
Is there any, as a Neanderthal, is there any food I shouldn't eat?
You should not eat
Yeah.
trans fats.
Got it.
Unless you're allergic to it, I think that's the only food that has been actually proven to have causative effects on, like detrimental effects on your health.
Yeah. For just, if there's some people on here that don't know what trans fats, what would you refer to as trans fats? Obviously that's a very basic, but we may be getting people from all walks that they're wondering about this.
So most people don't realize that I think the statistic is like 99% of trans fat have already been removed from the industry. As soon as we found out, I think it was don't quote me in this, but in maybe 15, 20 years ago, they were all removed from our marketplace in general. You'll find them sometimes. I think maybe 10 years ago, I found they'll be shown as partially hydrogenated oil. So not just hydrogenated, but partially hydrogenated.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it in like Cool Whip at the time. And I was like, God dang. Yeah. I loved Cool Whip. I'm sure they've reformulated since then, but at the time, that's where I saw it. It's detrimental, extremely inflammatory. It's one of those fats you don't use, but thankfully you don't see it either.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, so, after getting into gut health, obviously we talked a little bit, let's talk what brought
I
you to
was
that?
going through, grad
Mhm.
school. I competed in bodybuilding. I really did it for the data. I wanted to understand because I was so interested and fascinated in biochemistry of how we metabolize food. I
Mhm.
wanted the data on how to optimally build muscle too. So I wanted to find out if I could find one diet and exercise plan, no matter what condition you had, whether it was cancer, heart disease, you had an autoimmune condition, whatever it was, I wanted to understand what is the exact diet and exercise plan that no matter what, all of these people would benefit from. Because at the time when I was going through grad school, obviously any dietitian will tell you she's interested in food and how food will be used in medical nutrition therapy. And so you're reading about the keto diet and you're reading about the AIP and the paleo diet. And I sat down and I looked the research. How does that compare to my plate? I have 5 publications and 2 or 3 of them are around the paleo diet and how the nutritional deficiencies that are associated with it,
Yeah.
what the historic kind of foundations are based upon. So I took all these diets and I was like, okay, if I were to create one diet that was best for all of these people, what would it be? And that's what I created with Core Perform and with our trademark protocol that we support people through.
That's amazing. Yeah.
So you've just done all this because you're a nerd at heart,
Yeah.
all the data.
Yeah.
And I will,
Sorry.
I was like saying this because you have when we first met each other, you had one of my favorite lines. Because I was like, "Where do I know you from?" And you said, "Oh, you probably know me from my body." We can't really see this because it's just your hand on here, but Dash, you are incredibly ripped. Like seeing you at the gym, it was just like you're like almost like another level of you, and just how incredibly fit you are. Like just and watch your body like go through the mechanics. It's like you can see every one of your muscles moving like every time you're working out. Like you are incredibly ripped and super intelligent. So it's pretty amazing.
Thank you, Drake. It's funny. I don't mean to say that in like a weird way. It's just whenever I go to the gym, guys will always be like, "Oh, I saw you at the gym, but I didn't want to walk up to you because you were like," because I stand out a little bit more. I just know that, oh, people will probably recognize me from the gym.
That's funny. Yeah. I was like, we'd already talked and like looking at your gut health because I had no idea. I was like, oh yeah, I do want to ask, like, heavier bodybuilding phase, how did that affect your health?
I would say that probably and I've seen this time and time and again. And that's why I don't actually love bodybuilding. I would say
Yeah.
no one should go through that in general. It's a huge stressor on the body and the system. And I've seen almost time and again the number of bodybuilders who then develop heart disease, autoimmune diseases, like at a very young age, exactly at the time or within a year after competing,
Yeah.
you'll look at it and you'll be like, oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a high risk.
We also see a lot with them and what it does to their cycles. So did you end up having some amenorrhea and everything like that? Or
Oh,
were
yeah.
you, yeah. Yes, I never competed, but I loved bodybuilding. I mean, it was sort of more of a way to like fight the demons off, which kind of made me obsessed with it. How big and strong can I get? And even like going into some toxic places there. It also came down to kind of like shame about the body, which got to shift over a little bit into body dysmorphia. But it's something I had to deal with a lot. And I went through a divorce and a whole, life change. And all of a sudden I was like, well, what am I doing all this for?
I was talking to a friend about this and I it is just and you think about it and you go back to it and it's like very aggressive, very like, and I don't know. I just think that we all go through our own journeys and a lot of times the people who stay stuck in it aren't the most positive. Like they don't have the most balance and freedom and social life and like all the fun things because they're so obsessed with their sport. But you can also argue that maybe that's true from an athlete perspective, but I don't know. Like Simone Biles seems like she has it pretty good. Like she has a good balance.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the one advantage I think to some of that, like if you get really deep into powerlifting or anything like in your 20s, is you do get that muscle memory. And, I think there's a place where getting very strong and adding a lot of lean mass when you're young and it's easy. There's a lot
Absolutely.
of days that, so, now I'm 39, well, a bit naked, but I also, with my kids and everything, I want to be able to go hiking and kayaking and play basketball and do all the things that life has to offer.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Uh,
I agree.
And it's, the body dysmorphia thing, like, I think, well, all three of us have talked about it. It's something that we deal with. I think it's one of the reasons why my wife is such a good mirror for me, because we both have to kind of coach each other. But now when I look in the mirror, I kind of just accept who I am and where I'm at. And, that's kind of just a nice after effect that can come whenever you kind of heal from the bodybuilding phase.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think everyone who's a bodybuilder kind of goes through that.
Yeah.
You kind of get really lean, you get really sick, you realize that that's not the life for you, and then you find balance. And I think that that's kind of the beauty and I'm really grateful for that
Same.
experience.
Absolutely.
Because again, like I said, like the data that you'll get from actually truly learning how to manipulate and track macros and how that affects peri-workout nutrition and carbs right before bed before your workout versus next day you're going to just sip on EAAs. Like all those things are just data points that you use as part of the process, and going through it is just as important as going through your own gut journey, for example.
Sure. Yeah. I love it because now I'll get a piece of chicken. I'm like, that's 40 to 50 grams of protein. So I still very slightly track because I still want to get adequate protein in, but I'm no longer eating almost 3 pounds of meat a day where my stomach is also killing me. So,
Well, this is just making it really fun because I don't know if I told you, Dasha, but I'm gonna step on stage later this year.
Oh, great.
So it's gonna be a ton of fun. However, like what you said, that a lot of people enter that with negative reasons.
Yeah.
But like you just said, I'm doing it for the data. I'm
Yeah.
so curious. And now, to be fair, I'm doing it a little bit differently than just nutrition. I love nutrition and all that. I'm actually doing it more for the enhanced effects of how we can utilize peptides and some like these newer therapies to see if I can do it in a healthier manner
Yeah.
than how they used to do bodybuilding. Because like bodybuilders are essentially a walking chem lab. The amount of compounds that are in their bloodstream at this point with all the new peptides and androgens and different methodologies that they're using, it's all fascinating to me. And I love the nutrition aspect of it as well. It's like, cool, how do these peptides and the other molecules interact with the food and intake that you're consuming? 'Cause like you said, I think we're all kind of nerds here. We like to have all the data points. It's like, this is the diet that like bodybuilders have done for years. It's the chicken and broccoli and rice. And it's just, and now, all right, what if I add in some of these new GLP-1s? What if I add in some of the mitochondrial enhancers? What can I switch with the diet to get better gains or lean out easier?
Yeah.
So all fascinating stuff.
let's skip the crazy high doses of androgens and please skip the diuretics, because I've seen way too many people pass away. But I've seen a shift. Like for the really educated bodybuilding coaches, they don't even use a lot of that stuff anymore. They have shifted a lot, and I've seen kind of the changes in the bodybuilding world. Although there's still lots of mass monsters out there that haven't quite figured out that their body kind of views a lot of that stuff. It's still weight. It doesn't matter that it's muscle and it's more, can improve insulin sensitivity. It's still considered weight on your heart, on your joints. And, Ronnie Coleman's multiple hip surgeries can make a testament to that. Well, if you guys are good, let's kind of move into the core frameworks that you work off of, Dasha.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what I understood going through not only my own journey, but helping with a lot of competitors with optimizing their physiques right before stage, is that there's a 3-phase blueprint. So if you want to be able to diet on the most amount of calories, if you want to come in absolutely shredded on stage, not have an ounce of water, well, probably you'll have an ounce, but not have a little bit extra of bloat, like really come in dialed in. I've seen night and day changes when you go through this 3-phase blueprint. One is first focusing on gut. Gut health is so important because it is crucial and the first place that you will, one, be able to absorb vitamins, the good kind, or if you have an imbalance of good and bad gut bacteria, the amount of fat you store, remember how much research I've done about this, the amount of fat you store and where it's stored is directly related and correlated to the state of your gut health. Okay. So gut health is foundational and key to any physique change, any hormonal change that you are looking for. After gut comes hormones for obvious reasons, because if once we optimize the gut, we can really put the cherry on top of our hormones. Most people don't really need to touch hormones at this point. You know, they got the absorption down, their gut bacteria is great. They're seeing most people I see that come to me that have tracked macros, they're eating probably 300 calories more than they were before. I know that they're eating tracked, dialed, weighed macros. And this is a significant increase in the amount of food that they are able to metabolize and eat without additional fat gain just from healing their gut. So we see that benefit. That translates to hormonal health, right? Because if we're eating more, we have more energy, our metabolism kicks in, we're storing more glycogen and allowing our bodies to build more muscle. It's going and shuttling to the right places. Glycogen isn't being stored in the wrong places. And then after hormones is the physique part. So, time and time again, I'll get a patient in, we'll heal the gut, optimize the hormones. By that time, she's telling me, Dosh, I've never eaten this much food on a day-to-day basis. Like, I don't even know what to do with myself. At that point, when you drop and you go from like 2,300, 25, 2,700, 3,000 calories and you drop down to 300 calories, I mean, you're dieting on crazy easy, like this is like a breeze for them. This is what they used to maintain on, right? So the fat loss comes easier, the muscle gain comes easier, you're able to lean out a lot easier. And so when you get on stage, right, if you do this right before you get on stage, now you're dialed without the need, no offense, Drake, with the crazy biohacks and all of these things. It's like, from a true diet and supplement perspective, like this is what I can do with my body and my physiology. And I think that's a lot of the foundations of my coaching. When I went through bodybuilding, I didn't use a single steroid. I didn't use a single medication. I did it all natural because, again, my background and what I'm obsessed with is food as medicine. And how can I truly optimize what I'm given without the pharmaceuticals? Because I decided I didn't want to go down the doctor route. I wanted to go down the doctors weren't helping me at the time. I have 3 things that I can do. I can move my body, I can eat food on a daily basis, and I can probably supplement if I need to with like vitamin C or maybe some herbs. And so that's the route that I went down, and that's why I love what I do. And now we have clients that we serve, and we certify other nurses or we certify other dietitians to be able to learn this gut hormone fitness piece and aspect and how to put it all together into a human.
So I love that you're talking about like being able to diet at like 2,200 calories and still seeing people lose weight at that. And I know some of that has to do.
That's for women. Please make sure to know that, because I think men come into me and they're like, I'm eating 2,000 calories, 2,500 calories. I'm like, someone your size, that's for a female. A female's probably 40 pounds less than you, 50 pounds. Like you should be eating 3,000. You should be dieting on 2,700. So that's like men is even higher, I would say, especially a lot of men who are into fitness and bodybuilding, like their maintenance could be 4,000 or 5,000 depending on, how big they are.
I get that exact same thing. When I started trying to bulk and put on weight, it was like I could eat 2,700 calories. Like I'm not putting on anything. The scale's not budging at this point. I had to go up to like 3,500. And at that point, I was like, I'm tired of eating.
Yes.
Like my jaw's tired.
Yes. That's what happened with me too. I have celiac disease, as you know. I had to go up to like 3,200 calories for a female with celiac. And I was just like, my gut flared. I could not bulk anymore on like eating so much food, but it's a job.
What's funny in the real world, sorry, Drake, when, I let Drake do most of the coaching with Way of Life. And there are some guys who are really open to it, but there are so many that they want to lose weight. And Drake will start saying, hey, we need to up your calories. And we'll have a whole plan. It's beautiful. And they're like, no, I don't want to do that when it turns appetite. And we're just like scratching our heads a little bit,
Yeah.
It's a lot of times like when they come to us, they're not so much wanting. Some really want a lot of the coaching and they fully use Drake. But there are a lot that they are not. They just want to know what pills and powders they've got that are available. unfortunate. It's kind of, why don't we use both to our advantage? And you get the opportunity to eat some
Yeah.
more food.
Yeah. Why don't we microdose? Why don't we like fix your insulin resistance and now you're able to eat so much more?
Yeah. The amount of hesitancy and pushback I've gotten that for me, it always blows my mind. Like, oh, I've done this for probably 100 people at this point. And like, it works the same for so many people. Just get your body healthy. And if you want to use the compounds, they'll just work better.
Yeah.
Well, that's the difference, right? It's, you can get the quick fix and you can rebound, most likely. Or in 5 or 10 years, you don't have the foundational patterns and you're living an unhealthy life. And, you just took the tirzepatide, you lost the 10 pounds. Maybe you kept it off for the 5 or 10 pounds, but you never fixed the lifestyle that got you into that place, into that inflammatory state in the first place. And maybe instead of the 10 pounds that's back, now you have a new disease or condition because you never took care of the foundational diet, exercise, lifestyle patterns that got you to where you were in the first place.
Speaking of diet, because we talk about calories and again, fixing the insides, would you say that all calories are created equally?
No.
Why not?
So scientifically, yes. 1 calorie is a unit of measure. So
Yeah.
I can't say that 1 calorie is not 1 calorie. But if I gave you celery for the rest of your life, or I allowed you to eat any salt, sugar, fat that you wanted, what are you going to eat? What are you going to crave more of?
Ice cream.
Yeah, you're just going to want more of it, right?
For sure.
So can I tell you that a calorie is equal to a calorie? Absolutely.
Mhm.
But the effects and the metabolism and how our body is absorbing those things and how it influences our brain, our neurotransmitters, and all of that too is the gut. It's the gut.
Yeah.
It's different. It's different.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask that is because I do think like if someone's eating 3,000 calories of junk food, fast food, ice cream, potato chips, they will most likely gain weight and wreck their body versus like, let's say you're eating a super healthy diet of whole foods, fruits, vegetables, high quality meats. You probably won't put on weight, right? Lean out a little bit at that, which is where I'm getting at with like the calories.
So yes, because this also has to do with the type of food that you're eating. So remember, people who are strict with their diet, they're bodybuilders, but are eating the whole foods. They don't eat processed foods, and we still are able to increase the amount of calories they are eating without weight. There's 2 main reasons for this. One reason is meat, right? When you eat more, you're just fidgeting more throughout the day. And that might be something that they didn't even realize that when they're getting on podcasts like this, they're doing what I'm doing. They're like, hands are everywhere. They're like super energized. And then when they're dieting, they're like, and their body's in reserve
Low
as much
energy.
calories as possible. And so that meat might be what's being adjusted. Or, like I said, in an inflamed state, our bodies process sugars, carbs, proteins, fats differently. And so the easiest way for me to explain this is putting into perspective a very extreme state and a very extreme example of this. And I'm sure, Dodge, you learned the same thing when you were going through nursing school and your nursing program. In the ER, if we get a patient that is a burn victim, their entire skin is burned off. They are not only highly inflammatory, but they are also burning a lot of calories because their skin has to rejuvenate. So from a medical nutrition therapy perspective, right, my job is not to heal them. I don't do anything with burn victims that come into the ER, only to give them supplementation from a nutrition perspective. And what does that look like? One, it is to give them essential amino acids. Typically in the hospital setting, they'll use BCAAs, they'll use like arginine, they'll use other amino acids to try specifically for wound healing. And there's a lot of different formulations from Nestle and all the things that'll do that for you. But it's not because they need it for cellular turnover. Yes, they need it for that. But it's because when you are in such an inflamed state, the body is in sheer panic mode, you are more likely to break down muscle than you are fat. And so their bodies during that time, when we do feed them, and unfortunately, we do have to overfeed them a little bit just so that we make sure that nutritionally we're not burning muscle. We also just need, in that inflamed state, store more fat and burn more muscle. And when you take that example of an inflamed person, right, who's eating a lot of calories, and you bring it down, they are burning muscle and they're building fat, and their body goes into a state of panic. And that's what inflammation does. And so how does that happen? You know, your glucose levels are chronically elevated throughout the day. And a lot of this is cortisol, right? High states of cortisol forces blood sugar to be constantly on. It forces your body to constantly be pulling from your muscle stores instead of your fat stores. When you say a calorie is a calorie, I would say there's like the type of food and even the type of food, but the amount of food. So I'm so sorry. I'm going to take even further one step. So remember that example about the bodybuilders, the broccoli and the rice. If broccoli is causing inflammation for you, I could swap it out with green beans and you would be able to eat more food and eat more calories because the broccoli was inflaming you. It was causing low levels of inflammation in the body. Your body was responding to it. Maybe you have dysbiosis in the leaky gut, if you've heard of that. And that broccoli was actually triggering an immune response because it was getting through the intestinal barrier and it was triggering an inflammatory response. So that's why when people come to me, I really put them on a extremely specific fruits, vegetables, rice. There's specific grains that you can and cannot have on our protocol. But that's where I see the difference too. It's not just healthy food. It's like the type of healthy food.
That's fantastic. Great explanations. I think from there, let's kind of move over to where we talked about doing the gut health for real humans. I was thinking we could start off talking a little bit about like my GI map. You know, I've had some digestive issues really since I was about 14 or 15. I dealt with some heartburn, ongoing things, which is actually way better now. It definitely started because I started drinking when I was 16, which caused all kinds of issues. It did have where I would, you know, put fat in kind of strange places. I would guess I was probably converting much higher to estrogen because of that. And now, real world now, you know, you'll go through it, but GI map kind of showed what I kind of knew was.
So remind me, did you send me it via text or
I sent it in your email.
in my email? Okay, let me pull it up. Unless you want to pull it up, are you going to share your screen with the viewers with it, or do you want me to just go through it?
I was thinking just kind of go through it because they're not going to most likely recognize a lot of those other than Candida or some of the bigger gut names.
Perfect. All right, let me pull it up right now. All right, so Dasha just got a GI map run. I actually have transitioned away from the GI map recently. I've been starting to use, I think I told you this, US Biotech. The difference is that GI map does qPCR technology, which is just DNA sequencing essentially. And so you can have DNA sequences of alive or of dead bacteria. And so you can also add what's called culturing. And so you can culture the bacteria on top of that to just validate that they exist. It's about $60 more expensive between the two tests, but just so that viewers know that you have options as well. But Josh did do the GI map and he did not have any E. coli, no C. diff, nothing that he would get from, let's say, like contaminated waste food poisoning or anything like that. No parasites, no viral, like no stomach virus or anything. He does have slightly elevated amounts of H. pylori. It's not that elevated, to be quite honest. And the GI map typically produces positive results on the H. pylori by like 51%. So I don't always like go by that. I really just typically treat the patient and not treat the test, right? So if Dodge was like, you know, I don't really have any H. pylori symptoms, I'd be like, yeah, cool. We don't have to deal with that. Then on his good gut flora, he is very low in Akkermansia. So Akkermansia is a bacterial strain that's responsible for the intestinal lining and mucosal lining. So if you think about your intestinal wall, the thing that keeps your intestines so thick and nice and closed off is a mucosal layer. And that mucosal layer is fed on by Akkermansia. And Akkermansia are these bacterial strains that will feed on the mucosal layer. So typically, if you have more Akkermansia, you have a healthier mucosal layer. So we really do want to replenish that Akkermansia for Dodge. Now, ways that you can do this through food is things like cranberry, dark reds, and polyphenols. Typically, those are going to feed the Akkermansia. I would like to say that there are now products that you can buy Akkermansia, probiotics. I would say plant the seed with the probiotics. A lot of research right now is showing that when you stop or discontinue your probiotic supplementation, the gut will shift back to whatever it was before. So kind of like anti-probiotic.
Yeah.
But I do believe if you are healing the gut and changing the entire, and you're not just taking Akkermansia, but you're getting to the root and actually changing and shifting whatever was there, then I do believe that there is benefit to it. So until, again, we have more research to prove otherwise, and someone who has actually gone through a proper eradication phase. So anyways, Akkermansia, I would definitely add that probiotic. I would plant the seed. I would water the seed with those red polyphenols. Now, your Bacteroides and Firmicutes are extremely elevated. I typically see these phyla very elevated in those who eat a lot of fiber and eat a lot of protein, which is a lot of the bodybuilding community. Thankfully, it doesn't matter as much that they're both elevated. What matters more is the ratio, and your ratio is like so healthy. If it was in a high amount, the ratio was extremely off, that's a sign of metabolic dysfunction. It's a sign that your inflammatory states are off and your metabolic states are off. But yours is in a great place. Now, on the next page, we do see some streptococcus, staphylococcus, enterococcus, all elevated, usually associated with more digestive capacity. So we'll go down on the next page and see how your digestive capacity is doing with the enzymatic production that you have from your pancreas. But for right now, we can just see that's probably low. You could also have SIBO. Remember that this is a GI map. This is going to be a test of your large intestine, and SIBO, or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, is best tested through the mouth because it is higher up on the GI system. So although this may mean that you have SIBO, it is not a diagnostic tool. In fact, neither of us, I'm not sure, do you as a nurse have diagnostic power?
As a nurse practitioner, I do.
As a dietitian, we only have diagnostic power for specific conditions, typically with BMI related to obesity. So anyways, the test is not a diagnostic. It's a tool. It is not diagnostic, regardless of what is coming back. So then we also see some commensal inflammatory and autoimmune related bacteria. These ones are typically just, like I said, very inflammatory. These being elevated, we just want to get rid of them in general. So we'll throw some herbs into the whole gut and just help that to normalize a bit. There is some candida present as well. Typically, Candida albicans is the pathogenic overgrowing candida species that we don't want to see. We actually don't have any of that. We just have elevated amounts of the candida species in general. Now, I still would tackle that just in general by, the herbs that we would choose around there. But it is of note, and just to know, because I think a lot of times people, they're like, parasites are bad, yeasts are bad, like only bacteria. And the reality is, it's actually healthy and normal to have these all in our ecosystem.
Yeah.
If we were to go to a community and we were to wipe out all of the houses and build them all the exact same, we wouldn't be happy, right? We want someone in the community who has a little bit of a larger house, with a little bit of a smaller house, with one that is blue, with one that is white. And you can think about that as diversity. And diverse microbiomes are the healthiest. So you want to have a diversity of the species. When one species starts overgrowing and is dominating and is a monopoly and now is like, hey, I don't want you as my neighbor. I'm going to buy out the whole street of houses and completely wipe you guys out. That's when we don't want to happen. And that's when we have to kind of stabilize, normalize, get them out. But again, you're in a good spot there. Parasites, worms, none. No fat in the stool, which means that you're digesting fats well. Your elastase is around 204. That's that digestive enzyme capacity that I was talking about earlier that I was like, seems like it's going to be low. It is low. I like to see around 500. Yours is around 200. So we do want to boost that up. And again, that'll just happen naturally. This elastase marker is actually changes throughout the day. So, they've done stool tests where you do an elastase reading 3 times a day and they're completely variable. So again, take that as a tool, see the overgrowth. We see, hey, it probably makes sense that he can't digest that well if he has these overgrowths of bacteria that are associated with lower digestive. Then on the GI markers section, you do have good beta glucuronidase. That's a liver, phase 2 liver function. No blood in the stool. Your sec IgA, which is your immune system, is quite low, and that's chronic stress. Chronic stress causes low sec IgA. We all suffer with it sometimes. It's just a reminder that we need to focus on that, but also the chronic stress could be from the bacteria. The bacterial overgrowth could now be causing the poor immune function because your body's been stressed dealing with this dysbiosis for so long. So we definitely want to equip and support you there. You're not responding to gluten. So are you eating gluten right now?
I eat a little bit. I mostly do. I eat more oats, rice. If I eat bread, it's usually going to be something that.
But you've consumed it in the past.
Yeah. I never notice a massive issue with that. And I really don't, I don't really get bloating problems. So I don't think it's SIBO. I definitely had SIBO in the past where, I'd eat something and my stomach would just be killing me. Swollen. But, I've done some protocols, which, I want to do your protocol because I think it's going to be cool. But, I've done usually once or twice a year, I'll do some Biocidin and some oregano and some of the other things like that, just to kind of put things, knock them down a little bit.
Yeah, that'll be good for you. Yeah, your anti-gliadin is 10. Like you are not reacting to gluten at all, so you can continue eating it with no problem. Your EPS is more so a marker of your mast cell activation. So if you were having like allergy symptoms, like runny nose, you had asthma, I might see this elevated, but you're not sharing any of those symptoms, and we're also not seeing it elevated. So your mast cells are in a good spot there. Your calprotectin, which is a level of inflammation, we use this marker to differentiate between IBS and IBD. So something that is just symptoms and something that is very serious and we need to get a colonoscopy. So yours is in a really healthy place. I think you're all set. No need for a colonoscopy. And then on the last page is going to be any antibiotic resistant genes. So if you were to take antibiotics for any reason, this section tells you which antibiotics you are resistant to. Now, if you take an antibiotic that you are resistant to, you will not kill off the bacteria. So it's very important to know which one you are resistant to, and it can change over time. So, for example, I recently read my stool test, and I had 2 that popped up. And now I have antibiotic-resistant genes found in my body that I previously did not. And so it's just something to take with you whenever you're sick so that you're not put on extra antibiotics ever. You're using the ones that are going to work and you don't kill off all the crazy side effects and the liver damage that's associated with the others.
Yeah. I want to pause you for 1 second because you said something that's stood out. You said that you now have genes that change, and it sounds like it's due to bacteria. I was saying most people would assume that their genes are kind of like set for life. Are you saying like some of our genes can be altered with what's going on in our body?
All of our genes are altered by what's going on in our body. Every single gene that we have can be turned on or turned off. For the majority of our lives, they're all, and this is why chronic disease that is genetic happens for example, Parkinson's disease. We have the genes when we are born, but they are turned on during major life stressors where our body's not replicating properly, our DNA is not replicating properly, there's too much stress, and it's not handling mutations, and it keeps it switched on. And once it's continuously switched on, then it's switched on.
Well, I think that part's just fascinating when you realize, like, sure, genetics can be kind of a loaded gun, but the trigger doesn't have to be pulled. And that's kind of why our epigenetics kind of come into play, where even learning how to not get into those stress states for long periods of time, which is why it's crazy when you realize like meditation or like what you love to do, like walking in the morning, finding those ways to kind of just, be still, not stressing out. Like you're actually turning on and turning off all those inflammatory genes and potential for massive issues. And it's like, it kind of can become simple because it's just having a way of life that you are not killing yourself literally from turning on the genes that you were given when you were born.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's actually bringing me to my next point is what we teach and preach at Corporate Forum is the 5 speed pillars. So
Yes.
all of my coaches that I mentor know the 5 speed pillars and they start there. And so there are 5 major things that will turn on or turn off your genes or essentially cause chronic disease. So I'm literally about to give you the blueprint of how to prevent any chronic disease or improve
Yeah.
any chronic disease state or symptom or condition that you may have. Okay. And those 5 things are sleep. I'm sure you guys know that's all about the immune regeneration process. That's where the recovery is happening. That's when our body is cleaning itself. If you are not, that is why it is number one. Because if you are not sleeping, your body is on go the whole time. It's never going to recover. There is something bad will happen. P is personal stress because Dodge just said it very, very clearly. You are the stress levels of everything that's going on. You are not your environment. You are how you react to your environment. And that can be completely different person to person. A great example of this that I forget what book it was, but a firework could go off and one person could be ecstatic. They're filled with so much joy. They see this. And someone with PTSD who used to be in the army could go into complete panic, isolation. Cortisol starts running through the brain. Like they go in and they have to hide. And so those kind of differences are a great example of stress perception. And sometimes it's subconscious. For example, the army person. It's not like he sat there. He visually sees the environment around him. He knows that he's not in Iraq or wherever else. He knows he's safe. But subconsciously, his body has been wired to think differently. And that is what a lot of people are missing. And so I love that you brought up that meditation to ground yourself with your body. And so that's number 2. The third, now this all spells out speed. So if you ever need to remember it, it's speed. This is how you're going to speed up your life, speed up your metabolism. SP we covered. E is going to be environmental toxins. We are 80% water, and yet we talk about diet. What about the water you're drinking? Is it contaminated? Is it reverse osmosis? And think about how much we breathe on a daily basis, right? California forest fire is a great example of this.
For sure.
That needs to be, that's like carcinogens going into your system all day long, right? Burning candles, like that's carcinogens going into your body all day long. So air, water, environmental toxins like mold all go into that category. We want to reduce that as much as the fourth is going to be exercise. Too much exercise or exercise done in the wrong amounts that you're not able to recover from is detrimental. It is a stress factor. If you are doing, as a female, for example, HIIT every morning, fasted, of course that's going to hurt your hormones. That's a negative stressor on the body. If you do a nice walk as your cardio, that's obviously a great form of movement, a great form of exercise, improved outcomes. The last one is diet. Because like we just talked about, too much food is inflammatory, just like too little food is inflammatory. So you have to find the right amount, the right types of food for you. So I would say those are the 5 categories. If you can find 10 ways, what I like to do is I usually host a workshop. And what we'll do is we'll go through those 5 speed pillars and I'll say, which of those right now is the elephant in the room for you, Dodge? I would assume it's sleep as a new parent, but you tell me what you think is.
Actually, we have it pretty well set up where I usually get relatively sufficient sleep. I do wake up early in the morning. I'll probably say it's more of the just external stressors of building a business, providing, fatherhood. It's more of those kind of things.
So now if we were to say, great, Dodge, for the next month, you're going to focus on your personal stress. And we're going to outline every week, you're going to choose one habit that you can habit stack. And we'll start with something easy. Like when you're brushing your teeth, I actually want you to meditate. I want you to do deep breathing where is something that we can implement a very tiny habit stack for you that doesn't take any time. You're already doing something that's associated with it. And we implement one positive factor. And then every week, what I want you to do is I want you to add one thing around personal stress to the point where in 4 weeks, you're going to be a changed man, Dodge.
Yeah.
Do for free for people. And we can always drop the link to those in general for your audience as well. But that's a really great way for you to just truly change your life from one small thing.
Well, I love that. Like you hear 5 pillars of health. You're thinking it's going to be this big complex issue when it's actually very basic. And one of the things you brought up, which this is another one that's a constant in men, but it's the doing the hit training every single day, the cardio and cardio and cardio. And I was like, you realize your body doesn't realize you're trying to get in shape. Your body is actually thinking you're in absolute fight or flight all the time. And yeah, the 5 pillars it's fantastic. So
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Awesome. And yeah, and there's that's part of what I got really interested is like, what's the optimal workout plan for Dodge, who can only work out 3 times a week for 30 minutes, but he has a pretty solid foundational base.
Yeah.
How can we maximize and preserve as much muscle as possible during that time? And how does that differ from a busy mom who, loves actually the HIIT training? How can I incorporate HIIT training into her workout so she's still happy and still getting
still gets runner's high or whatever it is. Yeah. And once you touched on like the personal stressors, which I can always do better, but all the things you're mentioning, I'm thinking, yeah, I do like just about all those all day, every day. Drag witness is what I put myself through. So
I have no idea what you're talking about, Dodge. You're always so cool, collected, and never stress about anything.
Right. Oh, this has been fantastic. I think, just kind of looking at some of the other things we mentioned, we've kind of talked a little bit about processed foods, but why don't we just chat on that, just because obviously you look at what kids are eating, you look at what most adults are eating. It's not often that they're going to that central area where it's whole foods. It's usually like, oh, I get a health bar, or like we think we're eating healthy, but then you start looking at some of the, even like the protein bars, and it's just the amount of trash that's snuck into stuff is it's unbelievable to me. And I think that's another cause of just a lot of chronic disease that we're seeing, are just, strange increases in cancer or other just metabolic disease.
Yeah, I completely agree. I will say that I think the more that you know in any profession, the more you realize it's not that big of a deal. And that's why I think the 80-20% kind of rule works and
For sure.
is fine, because once you become too neurotic, it can be detrimental. I think so many people too, like, we don't have to go down the path of seed oils or anything, but they obsess about the small things that actually are not doing anything.
No, it's
beneficial in cardiovascular research. And when swapped out with butter, we see a lot of positive outcome in society. And so it's that misinformation, I think, that it's hard.
that's what we do, right? We find something and we swing the pendulum so far one way where it's so extreme. We're freaking ourselves out, and we're eating salmon and rice and sourdough. We're eating so healthy, but we're actually turning on those genes that we were just talking about for chronic disease because we're so neurotic about it. And I've been there, so I also understand like that. Like, thank God for my children and my wife to be like, eat a cookie, the key there. Don't feel guilt about it. Don't feel any shame about it. Enjoy it, and then go back to your normal diet.
Right. It's that subconscious, like we were talking about, how we can both eat a cookie, but my subconscious reaction around the cookie is really what's going on the inside. And I think that's, and processed foods, and really what drives longevity, right? What drives longevity is being purposeful in your life and being low stress as possible in a community.
Yeah.
So how can I live a social life? How can I have friends, maintain friends, have good relationships? That actually is the driver of your health. And I think so many people, especially in the bodybuilding world, they just like isolate themselves. Eat, sleep, clean, like you doing this. And the reality is that's actually killing you slowly and silently.
Yeah.
Have you ever,
go ahead.
Have you ever heard of the book Outliers?
Yes. Malcolm Gladwell, right?
Yes. Fascinating book. One of the things that really stood out to me in that was he did a brief study on a little city in Pennsylvania. And he was talking about how they had an unexpectedly longer lifespan than every surrounding city by like many years. And when he went to go researching, he was seeing like their dietary trends were all the same as everywhere surrounding food habits. Not everyone was like exercising. But what they did differently in that city compared to everywhere else is that a lot of that city was from like the same remote village out in like Italy, and a lot of them immigrated there. So it was a very community-based city, whereas like they were still not following great dietary guidelines. They weren't exercising all the time, but they had a very robust community. And that alone, like, elevated their lifespans like substantially more than everywhere else around them. It's all community.
Yeah. Did you guys have growing up, what's it called? Block parties?
I didn't have, unfortunately not. No, I've been to a few, but I didn't have too many of them where I grew up at.
Yeah. That's what I aspire. I want all my best friends to live on a street together. So our sons and daughters play outside in the yards and we
Yes.
have block parties and we all like come over for each other for dinner with each other. I think that
Yeah.
you take a community like that, for sure gonna live longer.
Yeah.
And that keeps me from moving off into the woods. Like I often think about like where and just get to do whatever I want to do.
But it's so safe and comfortable in the woods alone.
I love it in the
Right?
woods. I honestly would it took me years to kind of just be at peace with myself and become a good friend of myself, but now I can spend all my time out there without a problem. So let's see. We've covered a lot of what we want to talk about today. Is there anything you guys feel like we've missed on kind of topics we've really covered, like extreme training, hormones, mood, relationships, things like that? Anything that you guys want to touch on before we move on?
Well, I have a question for Dasha because you mentioned herbs several times. And I know that when like you're doing like these big reset protocols, like they typically bring in like these extracts, like oregano oils, like very common ones to like bring down different bacteria strands in the body. Do you have any herbs that like you just like to have daily, not like an extract, but like something you season your food with just to help with any of that?
Absolutely not.
Always.
I'm so sorry, Drake. I know you were the biohacker. I am the anti-supplement gal. As little as I can possibly take from an exogenous source, the better. And if I were to say anything, I think that's why I highly recommend what we did say around herbs, spices, seasonings.
Yeah.
Do it and do it all and do a bunch. Go get the parsley, get the cilantro, get the green onions, get the seasonings, like in the spices and herb section with the turmeric and the curcumin, like get it all and just start learning how to cook.
Yeah. So that's what I meant. Like, do you have herbs that you really like to cook with? So, like for myself, I always put oregano on my eggs, some paprika, some chili powder. I really love that. And I know that kind of they have some like probiotic and other benefits to them, but is there any herbs like you really like to make sure it's in your diet?
No, nothing that I make sure is in my diet and like need to have. My favorite ones that I love to cook with is I'm a stir fry girl. I don't have a lot of time for a lot of things, but a really easy thing for stir fry is garlic, ginger, coconut aminos, and a gluten-free soy sauce for myself. And that is like on repeat with some good, you can either do like avocado oil or olive oil, depending on whatever heat you're using. Carrots, like vitamin A, broccolis, cabbages, you get the red, you get the green, you get another fun idea that I like to spread for people is like try and eat the rainbow in a day. So try and get red, orange, yellow, green, blue in a day. And like instead of tracking your macros, just try doing that if you're struggling with eating vegetables. And that in itself is a good goal.
No, that's amazing. Do you guys want to talk a little bit? We talk about like myth and medicine. You know, like you covered a few, like the Cerebella Plus. How you were
Cerebella?
Yeah, Cerebella. I apologize. I know the name, but for some reason it came out that way. But the Cerebella Plus, where it's how do you not know phosphatidylserine is going to cut cortisol? Like that is one of the main purposes functional medicine providers actually suggested. So it has a place, but at the same time, we know crushing cortisol is not a very good way to, go about life.
Yeah, I am into this last night, by the way. So there are like multiple phospholipids, obviously, that are involved in establishing your cellular membrane. And that specific strand, although it is more elevated in the serine, we do need a blend. So oftentimes people will only do the phosphatidylcholine. However, because there is a blend of naturally occurring phosphatidyl compounds, we need a mix of them. And so I think that is for that Cerebella product, that's kind of the caveat for it.
Yeah.
Is there any foods in particular you think are really good that contain decent amounts of any of those phospholipids?
Eggs, right? Cool.
Perfect.
You answered that with love. Thanks. You can get quite a bit of that from lecithin, right? If there's
Soy lecithin or
sources
sunflower.
which kind of supplement, but also somewhat of a natural food.
Actually, I think it's in your protein bar.
It's in a lot of random foods.
Yeah. Awesome.
And what's your take on melatonin? How do you like melatonin?
Oh yeah, we talked about that. I don't love melatonin, but honestly, melatonin wild in the research right
Yeah.
now. Like it is so good for you. It is crazy the studies that they're doing right now with it. I mean, everything from when COVID first came out, they were using melatonin to stop the virality of COVID.
But there's also some research that snuck in where they're trying to kind of blame like cancers and other bigger issues with it. Which when I start looking into that, it always just seems it seems very bogus. Where like I think it's all of an age related thing. Like as you get older, supplementing with some melatonin does make sense. Or if you're not making a point to go watch the sunset, which I'm not always great at seeing the sunrise, but I do actually watch the sunset just about every single night. But if you're not doing that, you're not using anything to reset the circadian rhythm, like that lower dose, 500 micrograms to a milligram or so, I think there could be benefit. I know that you guys both hate it. When I've taken a low dose, though, I'm miserable. Like it's like a hangover for me if I try the higher dosing, which I know that's what kind of the antioxidant effect comes in.
Yeah, they said anything below 3 milligrams is okay. And then between 3 and I would say like 10, you're going to see side effects the next day. But yeah, those COVID studies that I was telling you about, the protocols for them, I think were like 30 milligrams of melatonin, like multiple times in a day. Like it was something like
It's wild.
crazy. Yeah, crazy high amounts that, traditionally we always stuck to the 5 milligrams in the gummy that we found at the grocery store. So yeah, it'll be
good though.
yeah. Anything in gummy form I will eat.
Last thing I just want to ask is, you talked about it in the first environmental, talking about water, and we talk a little bit about meditation. But I know, like, for myself, I am a very strong believer in water, like how we drink it, like reverse osmosis, having different frequencies, make sure electrolytes are in there. Do you have like any particular water you drink? Do you do anything special with your water? Or you just grab a bottle of water and you're good to go?
Are you trying to get me to talk about hydrogen water?
I didn't talk about anybody want hydrogen, so what do you think?
Yeah, no, I would never drink tap water. I think I am a reverse osmosis gal.
Yeah.
I don't believe I've heard the effects and the benefits of there's hydrogen water. There's also the one that's been around a little bit early, not for cancer.
Alkaline?
Nope. It's not popular in the like people don't know about it, but there's all types of water that people will try and sell you. Just get a reverse osmosis filter and stop. So that's like going down that rabbit hole that I talked to you guys about. I do know one influencer in Austin who went over to one of my friend's house for dinner, brought his own hands, forgot his water, so he would refuse to use the reverse osmosis water that my friend was offering him. So he had an entire dinner, 2-3 hour conversation without water, and cooked his own meal and like did all the things, that's just no.
We're turning on the genes again.
Yeah, we're turning on the wrong genes, man.
I mean, when I go to a restaurant, I don't start inquiring about what type of water. I'm hoping it's reverse osmosis, but
yeah,
and I'm not
tap water. I don't care. I'm just gonna eat your delicious food and wash it down anyways.
There's something to be said about having some of that stressors. Like, I mean, I grew up, I drank water out of the hose outside.
Yeah.
Who knows how long that was in there, but you know what?
And I think
I'm still
that's part of the safety and the health that children have in their carelessness and in like their naive setting. It's like, it builds their immunity over time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you want to get your kids out in the dirt and don't worry about it. And definitely don't use something like chlorhexidine to clean them or, to clean off those germs. I mean, when I took microbiology, a lot of people became more scared of bugs. I took the opposite. I was just like, man, my immune system is so amazing. If I can live in a healthy way, I'm not going to worry about this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm more worried about what they're trying to do to kill off the bugs that I have, or my my milk, or whatever that is. We have a couple more things. I think this is off the wall. We know your hobby, like career, is kind of one and the same. So nerding is a full-time gig for you. But we kind of talk about off the wall. You have any experience when it comes to things like energetics or any type of like healings that you've seen?
Yeah, I would say like my hobbies, I really love understanding and reading about like the yippity things like horoscopes or numerology. I just think it's fun to I totally believe there's a higher power. I don't know what that is. I know that we have other senses that we don't know about. I just don't know what that is. So I don't believe in God. I just believe in a higher power. So for me, it's really fun to kind of pretend we live in a way that's like you could predict your future with this.
Yeah.
So I love dabbling with that. I don't have it change the actions of my life. I just like to read about it. And I have done Reiki
Mhm.
in the past, which is I've done network spinal chiropractic, which is like they lay you on a massage chair, you face down. I always call it, I did it for the plot kind of thing. I was like, I'm gonna go try to get an exorcism and see what happens. And they just like hover their hands over your back, and you'll see these crazy TikTok videos of like people like having crazy exorcisms. Yeah, I didn't have any exorcisms and I didn't go back, but that it was an interesting experience, I would say. And I do think that there is benefit to it if that is what your modality is. And what I always tell my patients and my clients is like, I don't care how you relieve your personal stress, whether you believe in that and that's helping you. I don't care if it's nocebo or placebo or it's like, I don't care what it is. It's working. Remember that foundational thing that I just told you guys about religion and community and belief and higher power and higher purpose and knowing that there's hope to your future. I don't care where you get it from. I just care that you feel that in your body. And so Reiki or acupuncture helps with your stress relief, then great, do it. But if it doesn't, then you don't need to be doing it.
There's a saying I really like. It's called, it goes, whether you believe it's right or you believe it's wrong, you're right.
Yeah.
It's
You believe it's so
those
powerful.
Yeah.
beliefs that we're growing up with. If you're taught the world is a scary place, that's often what your experience ends up being. If you kind of switch it around, like I believe the world is a magical place, you might start having some wild experience. And if not for nothing, placebo's been proven it's like well over 40% a lot of the time. So, you do get to kind of have some into what your reality is actually going to be.
And if you actually do this, I swear your life will completely shift. I remember the other month I was visiting my parents, and in the morning we went out for our morning walk, and I was like, guys, today's gonna be the best day ever. And I was like hyping everyone up in the morning. And later on that day, we went on another walk on the beach, and we saw dolphins.
Wow.
But all of a sudden, we saw just like not 2 dolphins. We saw, I kid you not, like 15 to 20 dolphins. We saw what we think was a shark off of the beach. And I was like hyping. I was like, see, I told you guys, best day ever. But the reality is that's like probably something that would have happened either way. It's just like you believing in it and then you seeing it and then you like reinforcing that positive belief. And that's really what's the most powerful.
Well, if you're kind of gloomy throughout the day and you see the dolphins, you may be like not even paying attention. Not even looking in the moment of what's actually going on. Or you might see the dolphins and not care because you're just upset.
Right, exactly. You might be like, whatever, like it's just dolphins. Like I'll see them again, like it's the ocean.
Yeah.
I totally have those days.
Yeah. And I also find some interest in like the numerology and horoscopes, or like I'm a Scorpio, and it's I don't give it power, but I do find it interesting because a lot of my traits do tend to go that way. I'll check it and I'll say like, okay, what's on the menu this week? But I don't give it any power. It is funny because a lot of times like a big contract, like there's something big's gonna happen this day. And it's usually not like this massive life-changing thing, but it might be like in our business, we make a pretty decent shift as something that I've been wanting to shift, but again, I don't hold any power to it to where like, oh, this.
What's your favorite astrology app?
What's that?
What's your favorite astrology app?
I actually use ChatGPT. I have taught it all my stuff. So I just say, what's the forecast for the week? And it gives me Vedic astrology, the normal astrology, my numerology. It tells me what my life numbers, which is 33. So I'm supposed to be a teacher, which, I do that in some ways. So I find it fascinating, and it is weird. I think it is an interesting, like there's like definitely a blueprint to this life.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not checking it every single day. Like what's on the menu, like, what's going to happen today. And if it goes wrong, then I'm upset and I lose it. It's just really just something I kind of pay attention to loosely.
Drayke, what's your life path number?
I honestly don't know. But I will say, since I moved to Austin, I've never been asked more times what my exact date and time of birth and where I was born at.
I did ask him first.
Reasons too. They'll be like, "Oh, I'm calculating like your human keys." I'm like, okay, whatever. Yeah, my gene keys, my human genetic code, like whatever it is you're calculating. Here's my birthday.
Yeah. It's all interesting. Just being open to the experience and seeing what happens. But do you guys have anything else? I was thinking like maybe we do suggest, why don't we, like just for a small suggestion to whoever's listening, why don't we look at trying to like some morning light before the screens? Eat some protein before you drink your coffee. Did you guys have anything you want to suggest?
I like those two. Keep rattling. You had some good ones there.
I mean, I'm a massive fan of breath work, not so much like the holotrophic where.
Oh, I have a really good one.
But for me, breath, I mean, it is live, but it's also just, I am very obsessed with like humming. I see what happens when I regulate myself, and I see what happens with Archie, how he regulates. So even the whole family, if I'm off, everybody's off. So yeah, I love all the things I do. And you already said it, a colorful plan with every meal. I think let's hit the rainbow every day.
Yeah. One of my favorites is I bought a meditation pillow, and not just like any pillow, like it has to be this specific one. It's like pretty thick, and it's like when you sit in it, it's like beads and stuff. I think they use some sort of actual bean, like not a coffee bean, but I think they use something like that. I love putting that either next to my TV or in my office, and it's a constant reminder because I'll see it and I'll be like, if my ass hasn't hit my pillow today at least once, I don't care if you sit on it for 2 seconds or 10 seconds or 2 minutes, you have to like ground yourself into that pillow for at least one moment of silence, and then you can go do whatever you need to do.
I love that.
I'm also in the mornings, and I'm not a fan of like doing it every single day, but I do think there's something powerful about just doing just getting your heart rate up for maybe like a minute or two first thing in the morning. Like for me, I try to do like either burpees or high knees, like outside barefoot on my grass with the sun out, just for like a minute or two, get my heart rate elevated, boost up cortisol a little bit. I'm not going for like some crazy workout, but I always feel so much more alert for the day if I can do that first thing in the morning just to boost up cortisol.
I think it depends on the person. For me, if I were to do that, I would go into sheer panic because my cortisol is like sky high in the morning. So for me, like those walks are very gentle. They ground me, they center me, they allow me to focus. If I do things like that, but again, we were talking about this earlier, Drayke. You were like, I tend to have lower cortisol. So for you, that's totally awesome. For me, I need the walk, but that's the beauty of life. We can all do our own thing.
I mean, some mornings, instead of doing the cortisol, I just grab my cup of coffee, stand outside, and watch the sun rise with a cup of coffee in my hand.
I love that too.
It's also amazing.
Yeah. It's taking that moment just to, be where you're at. Yeah. Just be, let it be still. Obviously we need to do some more podcasts together, because I think if we let it go, we'd probably go for 3+ hours. Next time we're going to try to do it in person. We'll do some Wim Hof breathing before we, and
we'll do it all together so the viewers can watch with us.
I've gotten pretty good at being able to count and coach others while I'm doing it. So we'll see if we can wing out the video. But Dasha, what's the best way for us to find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Dasha Fitness. We'll send some links over to you guys. If you guys are interested in hearing more, learning about fiber, prebiotics, what I recommend, what I don't, you guys can download these for yourselves. Feel free to reach out if you need anything. My DMs are open. It is truly me back there. You might get an automation if you follow me, but that's an automation. It's meant to help serve you in a positive way. So it's going to be me after that. So don't worry.
And I also say Dasha is one of our partners for Way of Life, and we love working with her. So, and if we have anyone that comes to us and they've got some like terrible gut issue and there's a lot going on, we're actually going to refer to Dasha because she's incredible. I learned a little bit from here. I love the pillars, the frameworks, all the things because that makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
And honestly, Dasha is brilliant.
Yeah,
So
no,
I love being able to tell people about her.
absolutely.
Thanks.
We'll do
Yeah.
gut testing, but if it's something like this that's super complex, then we know that there are humans like Dasha, especially Dasha, that can do that weekly call, go deep diving into it. And so there's a human and a friend.
Yeah, it's been so fun. Well, all of our clients have access to Drake and Dodge, so they all, have contacted you probably, but anyone who needs to have contacted you has, and they always say the best things. So it's been our pleasure, and I'm so happy that we're partnering up together.
And besides Instagram, do you have a website anyone can find you at?
Yep, it's coreperform.com. COREPERFORM.
Awesome.
All right. Anyone that's enjoyed this podcast, please like it, follow it, throw a comment on there if you're interested. And we appreciate everybody being here.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.